Next on the list of the Builder basic toolbox is Google Docs. Google Docs is like, yeah, everyone knows it, right? It's like a Word program which basically has some cloud features which you can collaborate online very, very fast. Well, for me, I use it for tons of different things, but mainly for documentation, right? So I use the documentation and working doc with other people to get collaborative something done. So yeah, I just want to run through some basics so people really understand and utilize it in the correct way. So why knowledge gets lost, right? Things live in your head. So a lot of people, they basically don't write down anything. And especially when it comes to with AI, you can utilize that much better, right? So you should store it somewhere. It's also good to get it out of your head, right? So you cannot multiply your thoughts in your head, but you can do that online. The context disappears over time. So if you don't, things keep changing and changing in your head. And in the end, everything might be different. Systems exist. So every company exists out of a lot of systems, but they're not written down, right? So for example, a marketing manager says something to their social media manager that they need to have some posts, right? So suddenly the social media manager leaves, and then we need to hire a new one. Okay, now then there's a big problem because we don't know how to write it, what was the style, how to do it, who does what, etc. Right? So it's really good to document it down. What I noticed as well is, especially when companies are longer active, decisions are remade and remade again, and in the end, they're all the same. Good to put it down on paper, right? But in the end, you want to have a hands-off break, right? You just want to work to flow perfectly without answering the same questions all over and over again, right? So yeah. So the builder rule for documentation is your memory degrades, but the memory in your computer doesn't. People change, they have different behaviors, they have different moods. Even the people itself can change, right? And then you're running into problems. So context fades, right? So every time there's another issue and another focus point, and a lot of things get lost over time. The systems fall apart, but there's no way to recenter it again, right? So it's very, very important. What Google Docs is responsible for is one, capturing how things work, right? So you can say like, hey, follow step 1, 2, 3, and then eventually people can follow that process. It's recording decisions, right? So this works really good with taking notes, right? So a lot of people, they talk a lot, but they don't write anything down. And then things get lost along the way. Preserving context. So it's really important that you also understand what is the bigger picture of everything. Enabling delegation is like, okay, I can say to the marketing manager, hey, read this document and then do it right before I need to explain everything in detail. I don't want to do that time and time again. Preventing rework. So a lot of people do the same thing again and again, and then in the end you have 7 different versions which don't align with each other. And that also brings us to the 6th point, right? Creating continuity. The only docs you actually need, right? So I boiled it down to the most important things. The system docs, so how a system works, inputs, outputs, boundaries, so make system transferable. Process docs is a step-by-step execution, so everyone knows how the works needs to be done and how to get the best output. So there's no room for interpretation in that matter, right? So this way you make the whole process repeatable, because most of the time all the work is repeatable. Decision doc is you can see it more as a note, as a summary of all the things that have been discussed, what was decided, why it was decided, were there some constraints, and what was excluded. So the purpose is avoid reopening closed loops, because in the end you have the same discussions, but it has different outcomes, right? Decision doc. And the last one is the knowledge doc. So basically I just updated, so I was wrong. What should be stored, what is important, what can be reused. And the purpose is centralized reusable knowledge. So you don't want to write every time your company description. You don't want to write every time who your target audience are. You just want to create it into one document that everyone can read and can reutilize again. So how our docs are created? So first there's a system. A lot of people, they don't even know that there's a system, right? So there's a system that is being used in reality. Right, so let's take, for example, producing marketing content, right? Well, normally the marketing manager says to the graphic designer and knows the brand voice and also the brand identity. Then the designer creates like a draft, they send it to the manager likes it or not. If they don't like it, they send it back. Then the designer revise it, then it's sent to the manager. And then after that, it's sent to the copywriter who writes like a nice copy. And this is basically an existing process slash system, but a lot of people don't know, they don't even realize it is, right? But once you see the world in processes and systems, everything becomes more easier, and it's a step-by-step approach, which makes everything more scalable, right? So the system exists, is used in reality, then it's refined, it's documented, it's stored, it's referenced, right? So let me give you an example, right? So in the past, I wrote this for my previous company. It's about the Jetty. It's a whole story about who we are, what we done. And this is basically was part of the onboarding for everyone. Then we did this also for different roles. So you have account managers and all. We wrote the different steps. So in this way, when we had a lot of people in the past, we hired, I don't know how many, over 100 people. We just sent this doc. The onboarding went very fast, very smooth. And we said to everyone, hey, you need to read this before you can even get started, right? So this way you make everything more scalable. Documenting is everything. All right. So what docs are not? So they're not brain dumps. They're not endless notes. They're not drafts without owners, opinion pieces, or temporary thinking. No, 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 no. You only use it for the most important information that everyone can use, which either create like processes, systems, or like information that is foundational to create other things as well, right? So it's one place for reality. When questions come up, so you just basically send them to the doc, right? So you say like, okay, it's the beautiful doc. So let me also pick another one. Most probably I created a lot of these. I even created these before. All right, so now you have this beautiful doc, right? So this is the beautiful thing. A lot of people ask all the time questions, right? So when I ask any questions, you just send them the doc, right? So they can read about it, they can see everything, and then all the questions get answered. In the end, you have like one document that answers all the questions, and it's become more scalable, right? So you have less questions, fewer meetings, less dependency, and more autonomy. And in the end, yeah, if you have to do less work, then it's happy you, right? So why do builders document? I already went through a lot of advantages, but let's just summarize it a little bit more. So fast onboarding, easier delegation, less mental load, more leverage, and cleaner scale. Basically everything what I mentioned, it helps you to work better and faster. Let's say like it costs you maybe 10% more energy, but in the end you can utilize it times 100 million times, like whatever, endlessly. How to start? Pick a system you already run. Write what actually happens. Think really from a process-oriented thinking, like step 1, step 2, step 3, right? And to really give some clarity about what you're doing, right? What actually happens. Remove assumptions. It's only very objectively, right? Keep it factual. You keep changing it, you keep improving it, and stop when it's usable. And in the end, you can create a beautiful doc.